Okay, so welcome back. Those of you who have come back from the first episode, I appreciate you coming back. If you like what you're seeing, please hit the like button and put down in the comments what else you'd like to see. Those of you coming for the first time, welcome to the channel. Welcome to Dead Broke Productions. And if you like what you're seeing, hit the sub button, help a guy out. So, um, associate of mine, aka my brother, gave me an idea that I'm probably going to have to change this style up because obviously reviewing all 23 episodes, that's just going to take a long time. That's going to be a lot of work for me. It's going to be repetitive. I'm sure nobody wants to see 22 episodes individually reviewed. If you do want to see that, then let me know. I don't mind doing it, but I'm not going to do it if it's just going to be boring by the third episode for you guys. So we're going to switch the style up a little bit. I'm going to do something a little bit different than what other people do when they review things. Like when they review a season, it's basically they review the entire season all in one video. I'm going to do it a little bit different where I'm going to review like 5 episodes per video. That way they can get a little more time. I can give you, I guess not so much in depth, but I can give you more what I liked about the episode, what's going on in the episode, this and that. And it's more than me just cramming 5 minutes of what's going on in this episode, if I liked it, if I hated it, type stuff. So I'm going to try a little different thing here. I think I'll try it like this for a while, but when I start a new show, I'll review the first episode like I did the last episode. Maybe that will be what I do, is I review the first one. And then after that, I'll group in episodes, depending on how many episodes are in a season, group them all up together and break them up in parts, you know. So I'm not sure exactly how many parts this one will be. Might be 4 episodes, might be 4 parts, 5 parts, depending on how many episodes I do in a video. This video will have 4 episodes. This is going to be from episode 2 to episode 5. Only because I just kind of thought about doing this just now. Like, it wasn't something I pre-planned, you know, talking it over with my brother. So, yeah, that's how we're going to do this. So, it's going to be a little different. Let me know which way you like better. If you want me to do individual episode reviews, I'll do that. I don't mind. If you rather see me just group them up together like this, cool. And if you just want me to do movies instead of shows, then sure, I'll do that. I don't mind. I enjoy doing this. I love doing this type of stuff. I love watching movies. I love watching shows. So I'm good with it no matter what. So let's head on to our first, well, not our first episode, but the first episode in this video. So we are looking at episode 2, Honor Thy Father. So basically the rundown of this episode is Oliver's coming back alive, going to the courthouse, basically being resurrected, meets Laurel in there, finds out that Laurel is prosecuting a man called Martin Summers, played by Ty Olsson. And this is the man who is responsible for killing this girl's father. Cannot think of his name right. Victor DeSanti. I don't know why I completely blacked out there. But yeah, Victor DeSanti. She's trying to get some order for this, you know. That's all she's got left is her dad. Obviously, she wants some justice for it. So, Laurel's prosecuting this man, Martin Summers. The Chinese triad are going after Laurel because obviously she doesn't need to be in their business. And Martin Summers is like, hey, look, she's getting a little too nosy here. Let's take her out of the picture and get rid of her here. Also, the main woman who is the main mercenary in this episode, Kelly Wu, who has a terrible character name called China White. I don't know if that's an actual character in the Green Arrow comics. Maybe I'll look that up and see, but it's just a very terrible name. And something I thought was an interesting factoid, or if you think it's interesting, I thought it was pretty interesting, that Ty Olsson and Kelly Wu both were in another comic book adaptation of X-Men, or X2 they were in. As Kelly Wu was Lady Deathstrike, and Ty Olsson was the security guard who got all the iron sucked from his blood scene, you know? So I thought that was kind of neat, of an interesting thing, that both of them were in a Marvel product, or Marvel thing, and now they're in a DC thing. So, and they're both playing bad guys again, so shocker, right? But yeah, so Laurel's dealing with that stuff. Obviously, Mama Queen and Walter want Oliver to take over for the business, which obviously Oliver does not want to do that. That's not something he's wants to do. Not looking forward to it. Not his type of thing, because he cannot protect the city if he is basically at board meetings in stockholder shares or whatever it is. I don't even know the proper name. But some of the I'm gonna do a new rating system. You guys tell me if you like this rating system. I'll kind of put what the categories mean. I'm gonna do like an A, B, C, D, F type of grading with this. See how I like with this. It might change. Who knows? But I'm gonna give this episode a B. I still liked it. Obviously, anything that's like a D and an F, like obviously a D is basically going to be something I probably won't watch again, but I don't mind if it is on. And then definitely F is I'm not watching again. But I'm going to give this episode a B. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as the first episode of episode 1. I did enjoy the beginning scene, like the very first opening scene with the fighting. I thought it was shot well because you got to finally see some fighting scenes here, It was nice to be able to see some fighting scenes and not it cut away 55,000 times, I did not really appreciate that in the first episode. I did not like the fighting scenes at all. So I did like the step up on this one. Obviously, some other scenes in here with the fighting is back to normal. Some of them looks like it's even the same fight sequence, just one's further back and one's up close. So still not a fan of these fighting scenes, but I will say I do enjoy the opening scene here. Thea gets a little bit more in here, which is kind of nice. Her and Diggle both get a little more to do in this one. They get more shining time, as Thea's basically the one who tells her brother, like, look, you need to open up. I'm sick of this crap. Stop being a jerk to everybody. You've been on an island for 5 years. Get over it. Is basically what she's telling him, That, and she might be saying this just to get him off his back. She's tired of him being all up in his business. But we do get some John Diggle love here, as John Diggle also helps Oliver as people bust into Laurel's apartment, which I just want to point out. 3 people come into this apartment. The one dude busting through the door, Lady Deathstrike here, and then this guy through the bedroom. Where the dude from the bedroom comes from, I have no freaking idea. He just like magically randomly disappeared. Where did he go? Because Oliver's taking care of Laurel. Where did the bedroom henchman go? It's just weird. Just figured I'd point that out. But John Diggle gets some more love in here, gets some more action in here. Basically also telling Oliver, like, look, dude, I get you. I figured you out. You ain't this millionaire brat that I thought you were, You're more than that. And maybe stop running away from me, because I'm going to quit if you freaking don't stop, you jerk. Because you keep running away from me to the point where Tommy, A+ character over here, is telling me that this shit happens too much to me. So I did enjoy those parts. I enjoyed that we got a lot more Arrow work. I like that there was more stuff dealing with Arrow. And I have to say, I'm going to put this as a pro, even though how weird it is to say. I love the sound effects for the Arrow shots. Like the whole pulling the bow back. I enjoy hearing it, the shot it takes. Like, I don't know why. I just find it very entertaining. Not entertaining, like pleasing. I don't know why. It's just a weird thing. And I kind of like that. So I'm going to put that as a pro. I don't care. I'm going to put that as a pro. Totally cool with that. Obviously, some things I didn't like in this episode is I did not like how the flashbacks were in this one. I did not like how they looked at all. They looked terrible. I don't know if it was just because they tried a different filter or trying something different now, or showing that this is different from, like, compared to the flashbacks in the first episode. I did not like them in this second episode at all. Like, they looked terrible to me anyway, and it just kind of took me out of the scene. And then there was one shot in particular where he's carrying his father up this hill or mount. Well, I'm gonna say a cliff. It looked more like, and the body was fake. It was a fake body. You could tell from the way that I know this is weird to say, but the butt looked weird. Like, the legs looked fake, and then his hand is like this stiff hand where it looks like a board. Like, it looked fake, and it threw me out of there, like, right away. Like, 100% threw me out of this scene. But overall, I didn't like the whole Laurel and her father conversations. Like, it seemed like every time they were having a conversation with each other, they're always fighting about something. Like, I get, he wants to protect his daughter. She wants to do her job. I get that. Makes sense. But my God, do they have to fight literally every time they were talking? Like, I'd have to say right now, Quentin Lance is not my favorite character right now. Between him and his hate boner for Oliver, it's just kind of annoying. Like, I get it. I understand. You're pissed about your daughter basically being killed because of Oliver. Like, I get it. But damn, can you do your job and stop accusing Oliver of everything that's going on here? Also, something I want to point out with Quentin, since we're speaking of him, is there's a scene where him and Oliver, or him and the Arrow, meet up at the docks, and Arrow throws basically this dart that looked just like the arrow that took all the money from Adam Hunt. I know I said Arrow a lot there. I really didn't think about that when I was saying it. But the arrow that's there, it looks exactly like the money stealing one. But why does Quentin just automatically touch it, acting like this is a perfectly fine thing to do? Don't be touching things you don't know. That's not your problem. Leave it alone, Leave it alone. How do you know it's a recorder? How do you not know it's not going to freaking blow smoke in your face or something, It's just weird. Don't touch it. How about that? Just don't touch it. So yeah, basically those are the main pros and cons I have for this episode, and I'm giving this episode a B. This episode, according to Rotten Tomatoes, got a 92%. So whether you agree with that or not, that's up to you. I guess I kind of agree with it. I don't like it as much as the first episode, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. Like, it still was an enjoyable episode. I still could go back and rewatch it. I liked getting more Arrow stuff. I liked getting somewhat more action scenes. They still need to improve on those action scenes if I'm going to enjoy these action scenes. But yeah, overall, not a bad episode. And Mama Queen, terrible parent right now. Terrible, terrible parent, because she's apparently responsible for the yacht being sabotaged. So I'm not sure how I feel about her as a mom or a character. So on to episode 3. And also forgot to mention, at the end of episode 2, we get a quick glimpse of this character in the hooded, and basically in the Arrow costume. I forgot to mention it in the last one. Mainly, the reason why I forgot to mention is because I had to redo that section of episode 2 because I accidentally deleted it like an idiot. So, yeah, I totally forgot about it. Oliver ended up getting shot through the chest, and took a quick glimpse of this guy, the guy dressed up as the Arrow in this case, basically the one that did it. So, forgot to mention that. Totally my bad on that one. Also, forgot to mention some characters that have been in the last couple episodes. Totally my bad. I think I'm just going to mention characters who are in the episode that are, like, important in this episode. But I think I'm going to do it at the beginning of this. So, yeah. So, people who we've got in this episode, in episode 3, who are introduced, is Emily Bent Richards. Wow, I could not get that word out. Who is playing Felicity Smoke. So, it took 3 episodes to finally get Felicity Smoke in here. We got Michael Rowe playing as Deadshot. Byron Mann playing as Yao Fei, who was the guy wearing the hood costume who shot Oliver in the last episode. We got Roger Cross playing Detective Hilton, who I missed in the last couple episodes, only because he only showed up in a few scenes, but I feel like he's going to be in more episodes, so I might as well just tell him, like, get his name out there so we know who he is. And then we got Annie Alonso? I think that's how you pronounce it. Totally sorry if I say that wrong. And she plays Joanne, which I feel like we're going to see her a lot too if she is with Laurel a lot. But yeah, getting those out of the way. Basically, the quick rundown of this episode is very simple. It's basically Deadshot is in this episode. It is Oliver's trying to find the guy who ended up taking his target away here, and trying to search for the person who is responsible. Also, Tommy and Laurel's little secret kind of gets out here, so that's also never a good thing either, that Oliver finally finds out, but he kind of already knew, in a way. But mainly this episode is Oliver trying to track down the guy who took his target. He's trying to find Deadshot for this, almost basically this whole episode. That's basically what this whole episode is about. Basically him doing detective work, trying to find Deadshot, and then basically run into Deadshot. I mean, you got the detectives trying to figure out who this guy is, because Detective Lance, of all people, doesn't think it's the Arrow. He doesn't like the Arrow still, but he doesn't think it is him. Like, obviously, he's not going to change his MO and start shooting people and everything. So, basic, simple rundown of it. Let's just get right into what I think of this episode. Rotten Tomatoes gave this episode a 69, which, nice. But yeah, they gave it a 69 on there, which kind of shocks me, because I didn't think this was this bad of an episode. I will say one of the things that was pretty bad about it was the ending. Like, it was all this build up and everything like that, trying to catch Deadshot, figuring out, who he is, doing all of this work, and then we get a quick fight scene, and that was it. That was basically it. And it was a little disappointing. Like, it did all of this building up and everything, and you thought it was going to be a good fight between these two. I mean, I guess you could call Oliver a mercenary. I mean, he's not really a mercenary, but they kind of do about the same business, taking out people. But yeah, it was just very anticlimactic, and it was a little disappointing. And then also a con is it felt like nothing really happened. It seemed like nothing really progressed in a way. What I mean about that, it's just, we get, like, information from how Laurel and Tommy are dating, and then how Oliver met the guy who was the Arrow. I mean, I know his name is Yao Fei, but I'm just going to call him the Arrow guy on the island, just because I'm going to keep forgetting the name, even though I am looking right on it on my notes, but I'm just going to keep forgetting because I'm an idiot. And also just seems easier to say that. But it just felt like not much happened, It's, I don't know how to explain. It just felt like nothing really went on. Like, it didn't seem like we missed much. Like, if you missed this episode, it wasn't a huge deal. Like, they even talk about it in the next episode. So it didn't feel like much really happened. But I will say, for the pros, at least the good parts of this, is I did enjoy seeing Deadshot, It was good to see him. I like that they brought in a character that I do know about. And also that he has his wrist gun weapon. I do like that. I liked that in the Suicide Squad movie about Deadshot, his hand wrists there. I really like that gun. It is a pretty cool weapon there. But I do like the Deadshot parts. I mean, maybe not the Deadshot parts, but I do like the character of Deadshot. So it kind of sucked that he died, but I mean, spoiler alert, he really doesn't die. He comes back, but I do like seeing Deadshot in this. And also, I liked that Oliver was doing some detective work. I know a lot of people say that he is basically the Batman of the CW shows. He's basically just a spin-off of a Batman. He's not actually Arrow, because I guess Arrow in the comics is more jokey and comedic and everything like that. But in this one, he's more serious, more like Batman. And it was nice to see him do some detective work there. It was really nice that he's sitting there scoping out the areas, talking to the Russians, telling them that he's Bratva, so he can figure out who shot the bullet, where the bullet was laced with, and all of this. So it was nice to see some detective work on that side. Also, what was nice is Detective Lance was just a mellow man. Like, he was chill as fuck. Like, he wasn't sitting there bashing the Arrow and Oliver. He wasn't going crazy here. Obviously, he has one scene where he brushes in with the Arrow, which obviously you could be upset about that. That makes sense. Your hate boner didn't have to come into play any other time. But it was nice to see him that he was mellow and chill. He wasn't having a huge rage on of anger here. And I have to say, the twist at the ending of this episode was kind of nice. That Oliver ended up telling Diggle. Well, he didn't tell him, but Diggle finds out at the end of this that, Oliver is the Hood. Sorry that I didn't also put a spoiler alert, but if you were watching this, the show has been out since 2012. Like, come on. Spoiler alert for a show that's been almost over 10 years old at this point almost. So, I mean, come on, guys. Come on. I'm sorry. I don't know why I had to do that. That was just weird. But moving on. So, I basically will give this episode a B. You know what? I'm going to give it a C. Because there were certain sections that kind of were kind of seemed like nothing was going on. It seemed like it kind of dragged, but then there was also really good parts too. So, and they also introduced some characters that we're going to see throughout the season as well. We're going to get more of. So overall, it wasn't a terrible episode. I don't think it deserved the 69% that Rotten Tomatoes gave it. I don't think it was that bad. I think it was a little bit better than that. Was it better than the last two episodes? No. It does seem like they're going down a little bit. But I wouldn't say this was as terrible as they said. I mean, it might teeter on like a high C, low B, but I'm going to give it the C. Maybe a C+. I'll give it. But I mean, overall, yeah, I still enjoyed this. I liked seeing Deadshot and everything like that. So it wasn't a terrible episode. It was not a terrible episode by far. It felt like, to me anyway, not much was going on. And it was one of those episodes you basically can skip over. It's not one of those you need to see or anything, because a lot of it gets basically brought up in the next episode. So if you missed this one, it will refresh you right away. But yeah, let's head on to episode 4. Right? Yeah, 4. Wow, I cannot believe I had a brain fart there. Alright, so on to episode 4, An Innocent Man. And basic rundown of this episode is Oliver is going after one of the people in his books, finds out that one of the people in his book framed this man, Peter Declan, for a murder that he did not commit. So Oliver gets Laurel on the case, trying to free this man, trying to also get the guy who framed this guy. Meanwhile, Walter's finding some shady stuff going on in his business, losing some money. I mean, a good sum of money, like $2.6 million. That is a hunk of change that you were missing. So Walter's trying to figure out where this money's at, trying to wonder how did it all of a sudden disappear. So he's figuring out that stuff. Basically, I'd say this episode is a bit better than the last episode, where the last episode, it felt like there were things, like it just seemed like nothing was really going on. It just seemed like it was dragging a little too long. And yeah, it didn't seem like a great episode. I liked it better than what Rotten Tomatoes said that it was. I liked it better than that. But this episode is probably a bit better than that last episode. That's why I'm going to give it a B- for this episode. There were things that did push it, that did elevate it a little bit more than the last episode. That's why it's getting a B-. There were certain things that definitely gave it that B-, because it could have easily been a C+ as well. It would have been a better C+ than the last episode. Last episode C+. But basically, the pros and cons for this episode. First one is, actually, before we go into that, let me introduce the guest stars in this episode, because I always forget to do this. It just doesn't, I just don't think of it right away. But I gotta give these people their props, Gotta give him their props. So, playing Peter Declan is we got Lane Edwards. TJ Ramini, I believe is how you pronounce it, is playing Jason Brodeur. And then John Barrowman, Barrowman? I cannot get that name. I had it right before I started recording, and then just kind of went off the rails with the after I start. Of course, when I'm recording is when I go off the rails with the typical, right? You know? But yeah, he's playing Malcolm Merlin, and from what I remember, this dude, keep an eye on this dude, basically. Keep an eye on this guy, because this dude's gonna be, he's gonna be around a bit. He's gonna be around a bit. But let's head on over to the grades here. So, gave this episode a B-. Some of the pros that I have for this episode is obviously Diggle. Diggle by far was probably my favorite part of this episode, which is weird to say because he didn't do too much. Basically why I liked him so much in this episode and why I'm giving him a pro is just kind of the little mini arc that he's going through. You know, he's kind of debating, like, first he finds out Oliver is the Arrow, you know, like that's just mind blown. Like, that's a lot to take in right away. So obviously he's dealing with that. Quits the job the very next day, like, look, I don't like how you're spending your nights, not doing this, not going to be a part of this. Then Oliver's trying to recruit him, being like, look, you used to be a former soldier, be another soldier with me. He's like, you ain't a soldier, Oliver. So both of them going back and forth with that. Diggle thinks everything that Oliver's doing is just completely wrong, but then Oliver's telling him, like, look, I'm trying to right the sins of my father, right the sins of everybody who's done wrong to the little people. Like, I'm trying to help this city out, and this city is dying. Like, help me out, you know, Diggle. Like, come on, Diggle. Help a guy out. Diggle's debating, like, hey, you know, when I left Afghanistan, I thought I was doing good. I thought I left it in a good place. And then I come here, and obviously I'm taking care of rich brats. Like, you know, I should probably figure out something. But what I want to do, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. And then his sister-in-law is telling him, like, look, John, you got to do what you think is right, man. Like, get it through your thick skull. You're just going to go and do that anyway. So go and be a hero, basically. I mean, basically she doesn't say that, but you know that's what she's trying to say. So everything that, like, I do enjoy him fighting with the idea of, hey, like, I don't know if I want to do this because of how he's going about doing this. Like, I don't see if it's right. But then at the end of it, he tells Oliver, like, look, I need to be your moral compass. Like, I need to be that guy that pulls you from the ledge to make sure you don't go too far. Like, you need that guy on your side, just because if you get too reckless, I need to pull you back and make sure you keep on track and you don't become them, you know? And plus, also, Diggle gets the only laugh I get out of this episode every time I've watched it. Because I've watched it a few times just to take notes and everything like that to get what I like and don't like about this episode. And every time I've gone back and rewatched this, the one scene where he is sitting there after he talks with Oliver for the first time in the diner, and the guy looks at him, like the new security guard looks at him, and he's like, oh no, that boy long gone. Like, I don't know why. It was just the way he said it. It always makes me chuckle a little bit. So I gotta give him props for that, you know? Also, I like that this is another detective story. We also get more Arrow in this episode, so that I like that it's a detective story. And he's also teaming up with Laurel, which is also another pro, because Laurel as the lawyer, I kind of like you finally get to see her really do some work. She's doing some digging. She can basically tell by looking at this guy, like, you're right, this Peter Declan guy, he's not guilty, Arrow. Like, he seems like a cool dude, but I gotta figure this stuff out. So her going around trying to figure that out, Oliver working with her, getting her the info that she needs, you know, her to do her job amazingly. Like, I love the pairing of both of that. So maybe that could have been one pro, maybe that could have been two. I don't know. I'm going to put it down as two because I like the two separate parts of it. But I did like that there was more Arrow and it was a detective story. Like, I liked both aspects of that. Some of the cons, though. I have to say, there was hardly any action. You know, I know you don't need action all the time in episodes. Like, I know you don't need that all the time, but it just seemed like we got one action scene, basically, and that was it. We didn't get really anything else that I can even remember, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I don't recall anything else other than the jail scene, and that was it. And it wasn't even great. It was like 5 seconds of it, and all that really happened was he tackled the security guy, and then he punched him to the point where he looked crazy, you know, according to Laura. Like, that was it. So it just didn't seem like there was a lot of action going on here. I mean, maybe it's me, but I would like have a little bit more action in my comic book series or comic book episodes. So maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just nitpicking a little bit too much. Be it as it was. A small problem that I have, and it's not a huge deal, but it did raise some questions for me, is the voice changer that he uses when he talks to Laurel. How did Detective Lance not know who you were talking about? Considering he's heard your voice a couple of times too. So how did he not know what you sounded like and why you didn't need to use it for him? I understand you not having to use it for other people and stuff like that, but why didn't you have to use it for certain people who you actually do talk to, like Detective Lance and stuff? They've heard your voice before, so now why all of a sudden are you now using it? And why don't you just use it all the time so no one has a chance to even, you know, possibly get a match and be like, hey, you kind of sound like Oliver Queen here, you know, that's a little suspect. Like, I don't know, it might not even be a big deal, but it was something that I noticed, and I just thought, hey, wait, why don't you use that more, you know? I don't understand why you wouldn't use it more. I get, maybe not for the people that you've never talked to, but the people like the Lances, I don't know. It bothered me in a way, so maybe it's not a con, you know, but I'm putting it as a con because it raised more questions than answers for me. And then it also seemed, I know we also got more Arrow in this episode, but it also seemed like he was a side character in this episode, you know? It seemed like it was more focused on Diggle dealing with his stuff, then you've got Laurel doing her lawyer stuff, helping Peter Declan out, and then you got Walter doing his, like, it seemed like it was everywhere, you know? It didn't seem like Arrow was the main focus in this episode, which, I mean, obviously isn't a bad thing, but I feel like if the show is going to be called Arrow, it should probably be focused on Arrow. Like, I don't mind other characters having stuff, but I feel like Arrow should still be a little bit, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Yet again, these might be just nitpicks on this part, but it's just stuff that made me think about it, and if it's going to make me think about it, I'm going to, you know, it's going to be stuck in my mind more than anything else. So, I don't know. You know, that's just what I'm going to go with. Nitpicks, maybe not. It all depends on what you really think. I don't know if I said it, but Rotten Tomatoes gave this episode a 75. I just don't know if I mentioned it in the beginning or anything like that. I just figured I'd put it in there regardless. So if I did say it earlier, I'll cut this part out or something like that. So, or we'll just ignore what I said during this part. But yeah, that was episode 4, An Innocent Man. And it looked like it came back from what it was doing. It seemed like it was sloping there a bit, but now we're going back up, and maybe episode 5 will be good, because the twist in this episode is that Detective Lance has evidence now on Oliver being the Hood. So, is he screwed? How's he going to get out of it? It's going to be an interesting thing on what they're going to do for episode 5. So, let's go on. Let's oh my God, words are hard to, wow. Yeah, let's just go on to episode 5, because I'm losing the function of talking. Alright, so we have made it to the last episode of this video. We have made it to episode 5, Damaged. And this episode got a 86%, which is, I believe, the best we've seen. No, I think episode 2 was 92%. But it's definitely gone up, considering it was going down there for a while. Like episode 2 went down, then episode 3 really went down. And now looking back at it, the last 2 episodes have really made episode 3 a lot worse than I thought. So I'm not going to change the rating. I'm going to leave it as it was. I'm not going to do anything different with that. I'm going to leave it how it is. Not make anything different about it. But yeah, these last 2 episodes have been pretty damn good. They have definitely gotten a lot better since episode 3. So I will give it that. This episode is basically a continuation of the last episode of Oliver being caught as the Arrow. And it is basically Detective Lance trying to prove that it is him that is the vigilante, that he's been going around killing people, stealing money, all this fun stuff that the guy's been doing. And he wants to prove to everybody, like, hey, Oliver's a piece of crap, which we already know he's a piece of crap, but he wants everybody else to know that he's a piece of crap, which makes sense, you know. I mean, he has been a complete asshole to everybody. I mean, his sister says it to him as they're having a nice little chat, like, Oliver, you've been doing nothing but pushing everybody away since you have gotten back. Like, you've been so distant. And then Laurel calls out and be like, dude, you have been selfish as hell. Like, you have been a straight a-hole to everybody, and you're only thinking about yourself. And, like, just stop being a dick. How about that? So he takes himself a lie detector test, prove that he isn't the Arrow, which kind of backfires on him, but according to him, that's what he wanted. You know, like, everything that he had planned out, he had it planned out, you know, between the cops finding him on camera because he planned that, and having the Arrow be in another spot, that's why he's throwing the party. Like, that sounds like a lot of BS, if I'm going to be honest. You know, it's one of those things where people like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. That half-court shot, I 100% knew that was going to go in swish on my first try. No doubt about it. Like, that's what it kind of felt like he was saying. So, I mean, I don't know how I felt about your plan, fingers quoting quotations. But yeah, maybe that was... Maybe that wasn't a great plan. It seemed very kind of... It seemed like you were like, yeah, I'm just going to go with it and say that this is my plan. But overall, I'm going to give this episode a B+. It just missed the A-. And I was going to give it an A-, but there's no Arrow in this episode, you know? It's hardly any Arrow in this episode, so I had a bump. If there was probably more Arrow in this episode, I might give it an A-, but as of right now, I'm giving it a B+. Some of the pros, first off, the flashbacks were not bad at all. I enjoyed the flashback scenes. You know, they seem to not only give us detail of like what's going on and how the characters are feeling and what he went through and everything like they normally do, but it really felt like they were finally giving us some backstory here and telling us like, hey, like, this is what's going on, this is what he went through, the torture he went through, him learning how to, like, the basics of it all. I mean, I enjoyed it all. I really did. All of the scenes, basically almost all of the scenes from the flashbacks, I enjoyed all of them. Like, they were all pretty good. And we kind of get sorry, I cannot get the word out there. We kind of get a Deathstroke character. It's not really Deathstroke, but obviously he looks like Deathstroke. But yeah, we get this guy. We get, I forget the army guy, the head captain or whatever his name is. I forget his name. But we got him being a villain. We got Yao Fei basically saving Oliver, telling him, hey, look, I got you. Let me go save everybody here. You know, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed the flashback scenes for sure. Also a surprising pro was Detective Lance. I know that surprises me. I mean, it was kind of shocking because he was basically right. Like, everything he was saying, he wasn't saying it to, I mean, he was. Like, Laurel even calls him out on it and be like, look, you are just trying to have Oliver and the Arrow both be the same person because you want to blame him for every single thing that's wrong. Like, it's your fault why Mom is gone and why Sarah's gone, you know? Like, it's all your fault in a way, you know? And I mean, I get where she's coming from. I totally get it. And it makes sense. Like, dude, relax, you know? Like, Laurel misses them too. She even says, like, you're not the only one that misses them. I miss them too. Like, get over it. But, I mean, I will say he does do his job. Like, he is trying to prove that Oliver is the guy. Oliver is the vigilante doing all of these things, and everything that's been going on has all been his fault. He's got the proof. He's got the hunch. Like, he's got that cop instinct, as they say, where he just knows. By looking at this guy, he's like, I know he's a Laurel. I know he's a bad guy. I just know it. I can tell by it, you know? So it's like one of those, like the neighborhood or the city drunk who is always telling people that he saw Bigfoot and crap, but in reality, no one believes him, but he was actually right all along. Like, that's what it felt like. So I got to give it to him. And then even at the end of the episode when he was wrong, he kind of basically gave it like, look, I get it. I was wrong. You know, my bad. I'm just going to go this way and not say anything because I know I was wrong. But, I mean, his hate boner was not pointed in the wrong direction like it normally is, like where he's just always flipping out all the damn time. He finally was pointing at all that anger towards the right direction, which makes sense. I'm glad he finally did it the right way. It was about time. I was kind of sick of him always being angry at Oliver just because it was his fault that, you know, his daughter died. Like, I get it, you know, but you got to stop blaming the guy. You have to stop blaming him, you know, get over it. So, surprisingly, Detective Lance was a bright side in this episode. And then my last pro that I got is the Walter side story. I've really been digging, because I didn't mention it, but Walter has been investigating what's been going on with where the money went and everything, and how he found the Queen's Gambit in the last episode. And now he's trying to get his head security guy on it to get them, you know, to move the Queen's Gambit safe so we can figure out what the hell is going on, you know. And obviously anybody getting close to this ends up dying, because his head security guy ends up dying right away, you know, in a car accident, quotations. And I'm kind of enjoying this whole Walter thing. Like, Mama Queen, maybe she's not 100% a dick, you know, maybe she has a reason for why she did it, but she's still coming off as a terrible person, you know. Like, why are you keeping the boat remains? What is going on? What does Malcolm Merlin have on you that you're terrified, you know? Like, what's going on there, you know? You can't just be this evil person and not give us a reason why you're being an evil person. But, I mean, obviously, I feel like we'll probably get there eventually, but right now, she's still sketchy as hell. And, yeah, the whole Walter side story, I'm kind of digging his. I mean, I hope it kind of continues, but I don't know if it will continue, considering at the end of the episode, he ends up leaving for a business trip, and he doesn't say how long he'll be gone. So I have no idea what we'll be expecting from that, if the story will continue or if it'll end in the next episode. But I have to say, I am enjoying this Walter side story of him trying to dig and figure it out, him doing his own detective work in a way. So I'm kind of enjoying that. I'm not disappointed with that at all. Some of the bad stuff, though, unfortunately, Oliver's still lying to Diggle. Like, yes, we know you gotta lie to everybody else and shit, but why are you lying to the guy who you spent an entire episode on trying to recruit him to be on your team to help you? So what is the point? What was the whole point of the last episode, you know? It almost feels like the last episode was pointless. So I don't understand why you're still lying to him. Like, tell him the plan right away. He even tells you, like, look, Oliver, I joined this, like, joining your whole team. I knew stuff was going to go down and it wasn't going to be safe, but I am the one guy you do not lie to. So why are you still lying to him? Like, that just makes no sense to me at all. There should be no reason why you're still lying to this guy. So I don't like that, because it almost feels like you're defeating the whole purpose of the last episode of him trying to recruit Diggle. So maybe that's also why it's down to a B plus and not an A minus, because it almost feels like you're redoing the whole last episode. And then I don't know if you could say this is a con. I think it is, because I wanted more. I wanted to see more Arrow Diggle. Like, I wanted to see Diggle do some more Arrow work here, you know? Maybe see some scenes of him scoping out the guy who's selling the guns and everything like that, and then going in for more action. Like, I kind of wanted to see more of that, you know? It seemed like it was a pretty neat idea having Diggle be the Arrow and having him going out doing vigilante things while Oliver's sitting back at home because he can't leave. Like, that would have been cool to see. But unfortunately, we don't get that in this episode. And, you know, it's not a huge gripe. It was just something I would have liked to have seen more, but I'm okay with, at least we got something. But, you know, always could have done with more. And yeah, that was episode 5, and that is the last of these episodes. So, next part, the only reason I'm doing them like this with, 5 or 6 episodes per video is just because, I don't want to do a whole long, 2-hour or an hour-long video. I want to break it up in at least parts so that it's more digestible. And it's not a huge video that it's like, all right, well, it's going to take me a couple days to watch this. I'd rather break it up in parts so it's a little bit easier to get through. And me doing it by week releasing these. And maybe it'll be easier to watch it, 30 minutes, I think maybe they are. If I can get them down a little bit shorter, I will. But at least if I can cut them down a little bit, it might be easier to watch. And I might break them up with putting a movie in between both of them. So who knows? But yeah. It's the end of this video, end of this episode, and yeah, we're ending this episode on a high note because episode 5 was not a bad episode at all. I enjoyed it very much, and so far, it's our highest rated video, or our highest rated episode, so not a bad way to end it. Not a bad way to end it.